I think this is one of those questions that are infamously very skippable on your first run around on it. Just because there's so much coding in this language that it's hard to tell that this is a question that if you know anything about parabolas, you'll probably be able to solve it as long as you know what they're asking. So let's first break it down. In the quadratic equation above, a, right, is a non-zero constant. And the graph of, so what that really means is that we don't know if it's a non-zero. So it could either be, -1, +1. It's just not zero. And this is what affects whether the graph is, if it's negative and how wide it's going to be. So if it's negative, it's going down. If it's positive, the bars of the parabola are going up. And the bigger it is, the wider it is. The graph of the equation of the xy plane is a parabola with vertex C and D. And so there's a vertex that as of now isn't obvious to us, but we know that we would describe the x-coordinate as C and the y-coordinate of the vertex as D. Which of the following is equal to D? So what is the y-coordinate for our vertex? Now here's the thing. I look at something like this, and you have to maybe read it twice just to understand it. But once I see what it is, all right, I have a parabola being described to me here, and they want to know what the vertex is. That's really what they're asking. And I was thinking all right, well, what about vertex form? And what I could do is I can think about all right, this is not in vertex form, but what I could do is then, put this into, standard form where I would FOIL everything out, right? And that way I can get that standard form of x squared plus, x plus c, right? This would be your a, b, and then, and then I was thinking that, but then once I get that a in here, and then I get everything together, it could work out that way, but I realized that could take a lot of steps that I don't really necessarily feel comfortable if it's even going to get me to the right answer. So at that point, I want to skip and then come back to the question. But then I come back to it. I'm like, what else can I figure out? Anything. Because we get so caught up in they want the vertex. Let me go straight for that vertex. And that's the thing about the SAT is sometimes they really just want you to work around the problem. Work about everything else you can prove about this type of concept and then use that to fill in the piece and that they're asking for. All right, well, I do actually know here that this thing has x-intercepts of +2 and -4 because this is the factored form of the expression. So if I were to have a parabola, let me actually draw a rough graph here. Now remember, we're never really getting too specific on these. These are going to give us some context when we draw stuff like graphs on the no calculator section especially. All right, so I know that if I have a parabola, it's going to go through two parts of the x-axis, right? +2. So this would be 2, 0. And then this one here is -4, 0. Well, Eric, they want the vertex. That's not the vertex. I feel you, right? But because we know that these are the x-intercepts, we know that if you get halfway in between these 2 points, right, from here to here, that's a distance of 6, going from -2. Oh, I just realized I messed this up. I'm sorry. This would be -4. And then this would be +2. Sorry. So going from -4 to +2, that's a distance of 6. And if I can figure out what's halfway in between, what's the x-coordinate halfway between these two, I'm going to know the x-coordinate of my vertex because the vertex is always right in the middle of your x-intercepts. So, all right, well, from -4 to 2, that's 6. So really what that means is that if I go 3 spots this way, I'll end up in the middle. So at -4, 1, 2, 3, so that would be -3, -2, -1, right? So this is actually, my vertex is a bit off, but the idea here is that the vertex is at -1D. Okay, great. So we're a little bit closer. So I have an x coordinate. Well, what's great is that I look at my answer choices and I see that A is still a part of the equation, which makes it feel more confusing. But now we realize that that's a tool to help us because we don't need to solve for A. We can now plug in -1 for each of these to figure out what the y coordinate is. Because you see that x is our input and we now have a new input that we care about. So if we want to know what is the y coordinate of our vertex, we need to plug in the x coordinate into the expression that's describing the entire parabola. So I can rewrite this problem as y equals a, I always use capital letters, -1 or -1 minus 2, and that's now being multiplied by -1 plus 4. And then I can just simplify it to my best ability. Y equals a outside of -3 being multiplied by +3. And then I can multiply in any order. So to make life easier, I'll just turn this into -9. And then this is a. And then I can realize that this is the same thing as a here. negative 9a. Really, what do we want to take away from this? When you're feeling stuck, start just exploring as quickly as you can when you have come back to it at the end of the test. What is everything else that I can know? What else do I know about a parabola or this concept that I can kind of start painting a picture and then realize what is the missing component? What's the missing piece of that puzzle that the rest of this has kind of made it easy for me to solve for?